The voice on the other end of the line was calm. Too calm for someone delivering the kind of news that made the floor feel like it was tilting beneath your feet. "Mrs. Callahan," the man said, and then he stopped, as if even he hadn't decided yet how to finish that sentence. Tess Callahan set down her clipboard. She had been standing at the dispensary window of the Fort Drum Army Pharmacy for 11 years. 11 years of 14-hour shifts, of fluorescent light buzzing overhead like a trapped insect, of learning how to keep her face neutral when soldiers came in with prescriptions they were too embarrassed to ask questions about. 11 years, and she had never once been called into Colonel Draper's office. She had been careful to never give anyone a reason. That streak ended on a Tuesday morning in February, when the pharmacy intercom crackled and the receptionist told her that the base commander's aide wanted to speak with her. Not the aide, the aide's assistant. The distinction meant something. She cataloged it the way she cataloged everything, quietly, in the back of her mind, behind the part of her face that showed nothing. "Tell him I'll be right there," she said. Her colleague Donna, 53, former Navy, still shaped like someone who could win an argument with a wall, raised an eyebrow from the medication prep station. "Draper?" "His people," Tess said. Donna sucked air through her teeth. "Don't let them intimidate you." Tess smiled at her. The small one that meant, "I appreciate that, and also you have no idea what you're talking about." She smoothed the front of her white coat and walked toward the administrative corridor. She was 31 years old. She had brown eyes and brown hair she kept pinned back because loose hair had no business near a sterile environment. She was 5'4" on a good day, the kind of woman people looked through at grocery stores and forgot existed on elevators. At Fort Drum she was known as thorough, quiet, and good with nervous patients. She had been called sweet by no fewer than 4 different sergeants' wives, all of whom had meant it as a compliment. None of them knew what she had been before the white coat. She filed that fact away too, the way she filed everything, carefully, out of sight, under lock and key. The aide's assistant was a young lieutenant named Proctor, who had the look of someone who had recently learned what it meant to be important and was still deciding how to wear it. He stood when Tess entered the small conference room, straightened his jacket, and gestured to the chair across the table from him. "Miss Callahan, thank you for coming." She sat down. "Of course. I'll get right to it." He did not sit, which she noted. People who stood while others sat had usually been coached to do so. "Colonel Draper has been made aware of a discrepancy in the controlled substance inventory records for the 4th quarter. Specifically, a shortage in the fentanyl log that falls under your pharmacy's administration." Tess folded her hands on the table. "How large a shortage?" 17 units over 3 months. She let 3 seconds pass. "That's not a discrepancy. That's within standard deviation for our order cycle. The numbers reconcile if you cross-reference the surgical clinic's requisition forms from October." Proctor blinked. "The colonel has asked that you provide all records for review. I'd be happy to." She met his eyes. "Is this a formal audit?" He shifted his weight. "It's a preliminary review. Then I'll need written authorization before I release controlled substance records." "That's federal pharmacy law, Lieutenant. It's not discretionary." She paused. "I'm sure the colonel's office already knows that." He cleared his throat. "Someone will be in touch." She stood, smoothed her coat again, and walked back to the pharmacy. Donna looked up when she returned. "How'd it go?" "Fine," Tess said. She picked up her clipboard. "Can you pull October's surgical requisitions? I want them filed separately." She thought about it on the drive home that evening. The highway was iced over in patches, and she drove the way she did everything. Measured, attentive, one hand loose on the wheel. The town of Watertown came up around her, its winter bare trees and shuttered storefronts, and the kind of gray February sky that felt less like weather and more like a verdict. Something was wrong. She had learned long ago to trust that feeling. It was not anxiety. It was information. The body's way of processing data faster than the conscious mind, a kind of early warning system that had been calibrated over years of training in environments where being wrong meant something permanent. 17 units. A preliminary review. A lieutenant sent instead of a superior officer. Someone was building something, she thought. They just hadn't decided yet what shape it was going to take. She pulled into the driveway of the house on Mercer Street and sat in the car for a moment with the engine ticking. Through the kitchen window, she could see the light on over the stove. Jed was home. She went inside. He was standing at the counter with his boots still on, jacket half off, reading something on his phone with a focused expression that meant he was either reading unit communications or very annoyed at a football score. He looked up when she came in and his face shifted, the way it always did, into something that was not quite a smile but was warmer than most people's smiles. Jed Callahan was 6'2", with the kind of stillness that came from years of operating in places where noise was a liability. His hair was starting to grow out from the regulationed cut, which meant he'd been stateside for more than 3 weeks, which was longer than usual. He had dark eyes and a jaw that always looked like it was thinking over, and he moved around their kitchen, like it was a space he was comfortable defending. "Long day?" he said. "Interesting day," she said. He put the phone down. That was its own kind of signal. "Tell me." She did. She sat on the edge of the kitchen counter and told him about Proctor and the preliminary review and the 17 units. And she watched his expression stay completely even in a way that would have looked like indifference to someone who didn't know him. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "You think it's Garza?" he said. "Major Garza. Logistics and supply, Fort Drum." Tess had thought about him on the highway the way you thought about a bruise, probing it carefully to see how deep the damage went. "I think," she said, "that someone has been diverting controlled substances from this post for a long time, and that they have just realized I've been quietly documenting it for 6 months." Jed looked at her. The kitchen was very quiet. "How much do you have?" he said. "Enough," she said. He nodded once, the way he nodded when he was done deliberating. "Okay," he said, "then we're careful." Major Garza came to the pharmacy on Thursday. He came the way men like him always came, without calling ahead, without knocking, trailing an aide who opened doors and held clipboards and was carefully not making eye contact with anyone. He was 44, thick through the shoulders, with a flat face and eyes that moved in small, deliberate sweeps, the way a security camera moved, methodically, covering every quadrant. He walked through the dispensary door at 10:47 in the morning and looked around the pharmacy as if he were appraising livestock. Tess was at the compounding station. She looked up. "Major Garza," she said. "Can I help you?" He crossed the room to the counter and placed his hands on it, which was not allowed. There were clear signs, and leaned forward slightly. "Mrs. Callahan." He made her name sound like a question about her judgment. "I've been hearing about your records review." "It hasn't started yet," she said. "We're waiting on written authorization." "That can be expedited. I'm sure it can." She capped the compound she was working on and set it aside. "Is there something specific you needed from the pharmacy today, Major? I can have one of my staff assist you." He didn't move. "I think you and I should have a conversation. Privately." "I'm on shift," she said. "And pharmacy staff aren't permitted to conduct private meetings in the dispensary. It's a security protocol." His jaw tightened, just slightly. She caught it. "Tonight then," he said. "The officers' club. 7 o'clock. I have a prior commitment. Reschedule it." She looked at him. Not long. Just the right amount of time. Enough to let him feel what she wasn't going to say. "I'll see what I can do," she said. He held her gaze for another moment, then pushed off from the counter and walked toward the door. His aide scrambled to keep up. Donna materialized at Tess's elbow approximately 4 seconds after the door swung shut. "Who?" Donna said. "Was that?" "Major Garza. Logistics." He put his hands on my counter. "I know," Tess said. "I should disinfect it. Please do." She didn't go to the officers' club. Instead, she went home, sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and a mug of tea that went cold, and spent 2 hours making sure her documentation was encrypted, backed up in 3 separate locations and formatted in a way that a JAG attorney could read without a pharmacology degree. When she was done, she sent a single text to a number that was not saved in her phone. The message had 7 words. "Timeline moved up. May need to activate." The response came in 4 minutes. "Understood. Standing by." She closed the laptop and washed the mug. She slept fine. This was a fact she had always kept to herself, because most people found it unsettling. The next morning, the call came from the base commander's office. Not Proctor this time. The aide directly. Mrs. Callahan, Colonel Draper would like to meet with you this afternoon at 1400. Of course, she said. Should I bring records? A pause. That won't be necessary. She told Donna she'd be back by 3. Colonel Draper's office was in the administrative building, second floor, corner room, with a view of the parade ground that had probably been chosen to communicate something about perspective. He was 60, silver-haired, built like a man who had been athletic once and had made peace with time. He gestured to the chair across from his desk and she sat. Major Garza was already in the room. He was standing to the right of the colonel's desk, arms crossed, with the particular expression of someone who has arrived before you and wants you to know it. Tess looked at him briefly and then looked at the colonel. Ms. Callahan, Draper said. Thank you for coming in. I want to be direct with you. He folded his hands on the desk. There are some concerns about the pharmacy's controlled substance practices under your administration. I've asked Major Garza, as head of post logistics, to help us get to the bottom of it. I see, she said. I want to assure you this is not punitive. We simply need to understand what happened with the Q4 inventory and whether there are systemic issues we need to address. I appreciate that, Colonel. I'd be glad to walk you through the October through December records in detail. 17 units is within standard deviation for our order cycle. When you cross-reference the surgical clinic requisitions, Ms. Callahan, Garza's voice, from the side of the room, smooth and flat as a slab of concrete. Let's not complicate this. She turned to look at him. The simplest explanation, he said, is usually the correct one. Your records show a shortage. Your name is on every dispensing authorization during that period. The math is straightforward. She looked at him for a moment. Then she said, the math is straightforward. That's correct. Which is why I'd like to present the full records in a formal audit, so the math can speak for itself. She turned back to Draper. Colonel, I want to be cooperative. I want to resolve this quickly. But I'd ask that this review be conducted by the Inspector General's office rather than by Major Garza, given that his department's requisition forms are part of the documentation in question. Silence. Draper looked at Garza. Garza looked at Tess. The look Garza gave her was the kind that was meant to be felt rather than seen. A weight, a pressure, a suggestion of what happened to people who said things like what she had just said. She had been looked at that way before, by people who were considerably more qualified to deliver on the threat. She looked back at him pleasantly. I think that's a reasonable request, Draper said finally, though he didn't sound entirely convinced he meant it. I'll contact the IG's office. Thank you, Colonel. She stood. I'll have everything ready. Garza caught her in the hallway. She heard him before she saw him, the specific weight of a man walking fast and trying not to look like he was walking fast, and she turned at the right moment to face him. Ms. Callahan. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough to crowd. I think you misread the situation in there. Did I? This review is going to happen one way or another. His voice was low, deliberate, with the careful cadence of someone who had delivered this particular speech before. The only question is how much disruption you want to cause yourself in the process. You've got a good record here, good evaluations, people like you. He paused. It would be a shame to see that change. She looked at him. Is that all? She said. Something moved behind his eyes. Not anger, not yet, something colder. Think about it, he said. I will, she said. Have a good afternoon, Major. She walked down the hallway and out through the lobby and into the February air, which hit her face like a clear fact. She texted Jed from the parking lot. He came to me in the hallway. Explicit. His response was almost immediate. Okay, tonight. That evening, they sat at the kitchen table together, and she showed him everything. Jed went through the files with the same careful attention he gave to maps and briefings. Quietly, turning pages, occasionally going back to look at something again. He had a yellow legal pad beside him, and he made notes in the small, precise handwriting of someone trained to communicate in the dark. When he finished, he sat back and rubbed his jaw. 6 months, he said. I started noticing the pattern in August, she said. Small enough to look like clerical error. Consistent enough that it wasn't. She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. He's been diverting opioids, Jed. Not 17 units. Closer to 200 over 18 months if you extrapolate the pattern backward for distribution or personal use. Based on the timing and the volumes, distribution. There's an exit point somewhere. I don't know where. Jed was quiet for a moment. You can't sit on this. I know. If the IG's office is compromised, then I go over them. She met his eyes. I know how to do this. He looked at her. Really looked at her. The way he occasionally did. The way that meant he was seeing all of it. Not just the white coat and the quiet hallways and the fluorescent light, but the part of her that had existed before all of that. The part that knew how to read a situation and calculate an exit and stay breathing when the room closed in. What do you need? He said. A few more days, she said. And then I need you to be available. Always, he said. The threat arrived on a Monday. Not a phone call, not a hallway conversation. An email sent from an anonymized address to her personal account at 11:14 p.m. on a Sunday night. You have until Friday to reconsider your position. After that, we can't protect your career or your husband's. She read it twice. Then she forwarded it to the number that wasn't saved in her phone with one sentence. They just made it federal. She slept fine. Tuesday, she went to work. She filled prescriptions. She talked to a young corporal who was nervous about a new medication and told him what to expect and answered his questions until the nervousness left his face. She ate lunch at her desk. She went home. Wednesday, she filed a formal whistleblower complaint with the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. She did it herself, online, from her personal laptop, with documentation attached. She used her own name. She checked the box, marked, I believe this information relates to ongoing criminal activity. She pressed submit and made herself a cup of tea. Thursday morning, Garza came back to the pharmacy. He didn't bring an aide this time. It was just him, and he came through the dispensary door at 8:15, before the day's patient flow had started, when the only people in the back were Tess and a technician named Yolanda, who was in the supply room counting stock. He closed the dispensary door behind him. I need to speak with you, he said. The pharmacy opens at 8:30, she said. If you need a private conversation with pharmacy staff, you can request a meeting through the administrative. Stop. He crossed the room in 8 steps. He was bigger than she remembered. Or he was using his size more deliberately. He stopped at the counter, and this time he didn't just place his hands on it. He leaned over it, getting close, reducing the space between them. I know you filed with the IG. She kept her hands on the work surface, still, not gripping. That was fast, she said. I want you to withdraw it. I can't withdraw a federal complaint on an ongoing investigation. You can say you made an error, that you misread the data. His voice had dropped, gone very flat. People misread things all the time. It happens. No one would fault you for it. I didn't misread the data, Major. He reached out and put his hand over hers on the counter. Not a grip, a weight. Heavy and deliberate, the way a door closing was deliberate. Ms. Callahan, he said, I'm going to ask you one more time to think very carefully about what you're doing. The supply room door opened. Yolanda came out with a clipboard and a box of inventory, looked up and stopped. Garza did not move his hand. Tess looked down at it. Then she looked up at him. Yolanda, she said, without raising her voice, can you call the MP desk and ask them to send someone to the dispensary? Tell them we have an unauthorized personnel situation. Yolanda was already reaching for the phone. Garza's hand lifted. He straightened. You have no idea what you're doing, he said. I have a very precise idea, she said. He left before the MPs arrived, but they logged the call, and she gave a statement, and that statement went into a file that was now growing in a way that Garza did not yet fully understand. Friday, the deadline in the email. She went to work. She filled prescriptions. She ate lunch at her desk. At 3:47 p.m., 2 men in civilian clothes walked into the pharmacy and asked to speak with the senior pharmacist. They showed credentials, Defense Criminal Investigative Service. They had quiet voices and carried themselves the way people carried themselves when they were not trying to impress anyone. They asked her to walk them through the documentation. She did. It took 2 hours. When they left, one of them, Agent Hartley, 40-ish, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of face you'd forget and then remember later as trustworthy, paused at the dispensary door. You've been sitting on this for 6 months, he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was almost a question. I wanted to make sure it was right, she said. He looked at her for a moment. It's right, he said. Major Garza was placed on administrative leave the following Monday. The announcement was brief and bureaucratic and gave away nothing. But the post was small enough that everyone understood something. They understood it in the way that people understood things on bases. Not from what was said, but from what was no longer being said. From the sudden absence of a particular kind of pressure. Tess found out through the official channels, the same way everyone else did. She read the memo, folded it, set it aside, and went back to work. Donna came by at lunch. You want to tell me what that was all about, she said. Pharmacy records review, Tess said. Donna narrowed her eyes. It's handled, Tess said. Donna sat on the edge of the desk and crossed her arms. She had the particular expression she wore when she was deciding whether to push or let something go. She let it go. You eat lunch? Not yet. I've got a turkey sandwich. Half, Tess said. 2 weeks later, the DCIS indicted Garza on 4 counts of theft of controlled substances, 1 count of official misconduct, and 2 counts of witness intimidation. The indictment referenced documentation provided by a federal whistleblower. It did not name her. Colonel Draper called her into his office the afternoon the news broke. He looked older than he had the last time she'd seen him. He gestured to the chair and she sat, and, for a moment, he didn't say anything, just looked at the parade ground through the window, as if it had let him down personally. You could have come to me, he said finally. With respect, Colonel, she said, I didn't know where the boundary was. He nodded. It was the nod of a man who understood what she was not saying and was not sure how to feel about it. The investigation found no culpability on your part regarding the Q4 inventory, he said. Your record has been cleared. Thank you. You're a good pharmacist, Ms. Callahan. I try to be, she said. He was still looking out the window. Is there anything you want to say? Off the record? She thought about it. About the 8 months of noticing and saying nothing. About the email at 11:14 p.m. and the hand on the counter, and the particular way Garza had said, your husband's, as if Jed were a card he held. About the corporal who'd been nervous about his medication, and Donna with her turkey sandwich, and the fluorescent light buzzing overhead like a trapped insect. I just wanted the numbers to be right, she said. Draper finally turned from the window and looked at her. Really looked, the way people rarely did. I think, he said slowly, you're a great deal more than a pharmacist, Ms. Callahan. She gave him the small smile, the one that meant, you're not wrong, but that's not a conversation we're going to have today. Thank you, Colonel, she said. I appreciate that. Jed was waiting in the parking lot when she came out. He wasn't supposed to be. She hadn't asked him to come. But his truck was there in the second row, and he was leaning against it with a thermos of coffee, and that expression he had, the one that was not quite a smile, that was warmer than most people's smiles. She walked up to him. It's over, he said. It's over, she said. He handed her the thermos. She took it and wrapped both hands around it and let the warmth soak in for a moment. The February sky had gone pale, and the parade ground lights were starting to come on, and somewhere across the post, someone was doing drills, the cadence carrying through the cold air in that steady, percussive rhythm. How'd Draper take it? Jed said. Like a man who'd underestimated something, she said. He's going to be fine. And you? She looked at him. He was watching her the way he always did when he asked that question. Not looking for a performance, not looking for fine, just looking for the truth of it. I'm good, she said, and she meant it. The way you meant something after you'd carried it carefully for a long time and finally set it down in the right place. He took the thermos back, took a sip, handed it back. Dinner, he said. Yes, she said. Somewhere warm. They drove off the post together into the early dark, and the lights came up one by one behind them, and the cadence faded. And the road opened out ahead in that particular way that roads do when you're heading somewhere you mean to go.